Hello, everyone. Mark with Cardvox Academy here, and today we're going to be checking out Lorna Shore, Vocal One Take, Unbreakable, and I'm excited about it because to be honest with y'all, I don't really love the way the singles I've heard from Lorna Shore so far. I don't really love where the vocals are sitting. I feel like they're kind of lost sometimes in the mix. Simply a personal opinion. So with this Vocal One Take, I'm hoping the vocals are more forward. I'm hoping we can hear some more nuance. If any of you have heard my band Kardashev, you know that that's a bit rich coming from me because my voice is always like doused in reverb and stuff, but it's a different genre of music. It doesn't count. But if you're new to the channel, I am a harsh vocal, extreme vocal coach. I teach people full time how to go safely and efficiently so they don't hurt themselves and they can follow their metal vocal dreams. And let's do it. Let's check out Lorna Shore, Unbreakable, Vocal One Take. Here we go. Nice. Now, I'm going to pause in kind of strategic spots because I have heard this song before. I heard I saw the music video they released for this, you know, the one where he's on stage and going crazy and the crowd's like, ah. So I have heard this song. I kind of know what to expect, which is another reason I wanted to do it. But I want to talk about a couple things here. So, you know, there's something really kind of interesting. And of course, you know, he's not the first person to do it, but he does it so distinctly with his type of screams in that, you know, there are different sort of, I guess, I don't want to say like philosophy or schools of singing because I hesitate. One thing I don't love is the sort of gridlock we put on metal vocals. Like, I think that a lot of the time when we try to point at one vocal and say that is false chord or that is fry, we're missing a lot of nuance that is honestly more interesting to talk about. However, there are times when we can do that. So when I say this, I'm not trying to put a gridlock on his voice. But what I am saying is that he utilizes a vocal style much of the time that builds on trying to be as smooth and crisp and clean as possible. Now, when I say clean, I'm not talking about clean vocals. I'm talking about a lack of really sort of bubbly, gurgly, like his voice sounds like TV static, not like stirring a bowl of macaroni, right? An example would be, you know, if I was to do like a really chunky growl, like let's say an old school like false chord, like, you know, right? That has a lot of chunk. It has a lot of inconsistencies with it in the sound naturally, right? His voice has a lot. Now, when I do screams to talk about his voice, I want to say something up front because it always comes up. I don't scream like this guy at all. I don't sound a damn thing like him. If there was a Scream Like Will Ramos competition, I would probably get last place. But what I can do is I can talk to you about the same physical, like the same concepts of air, like airflow dynamics, physics, breath control, all that same stuff. I just don't take my larynx and do this, right? But we can still talk about the same sound concept, right? So if I take a scream that's like very white noise, brown noise, perhaps, because it's a little lower. If I take a scream that's like, you know, right? One of the advantages as somebody who does, you know, a lot of gurgly screams and a lot of TV static screams, one of the advantages of this is it offers a lot of dexterity once you get it down, right? With like, as someone who's been doing false chord for like 16, 17 years, a long time, it's very air dumpy, even when done with a little bit of vocal cord activity to control the airflow or with a little bit of like supraglottal compression. It can be very air dumpy. Whereas when I do this, I do this sort of sound. There's not a lot of inefficiency in that airflow. And so I can open, close, mid to low, brighten, darken, just with my mouth, right? We have like, oh no, I got to burp. What an inopportune time. Sweet, I'm leaving that in. Natural, homies. So I can take this tone, which on its own, like straight up sounds boring, right? Wow. Like that's the bass line of the scream that I do that shares similar properties. Don't put that on an album. Nobody's listening to that. But if I darken, we can get a lot of cool tones. And this is an advantage, especially in deathcore and very acrobatic sections of deathcore where you have to snap between things very, very quickly. Now, that's not to say false chord and other styles can't do that. They absolutely can. It's just going to be a little bit different. And Will controls that very well. You can hear him switch between two techniques very quickly. One of my favorite things to listen to and to do is he has his vocal and then he sort of like cries off of it. So like this, right? It sounds really cool. I'm not going to go back because I'm sure he'll do it again. But let's go ahead and keep going. I want you to kind of think about that. I want you to hear how when you listen to his voice, you don't hear a lot of change, at least most of the time, in like the gas and clutch and brake, right? You hear a lot of change in the shaping of the mouth. It's not like push, stop, up. It's all up here. Anyways, let's keep going. Yeah. I want to talk about that while it's fresh. So another thing that's really really pretty neat about, this type of vocal where so much of it is based on creating a staticky, smooth sound and then manipulating it is you have advantages when it comes to the manipulation of your airflow, right? This is something that was really popular in like the death. And when I say really popular, I'm not saying nobody does it anymore. Of course, I'm just saying like it was a thing back when I first started really taking this vocal coaching thing seriously and made a YouTube channel and everything. One of the things that people really loved to do, and I think it sounds really cool, to add a little bit of I could say character to their scream is change the airflow. And again, this is going to be easier with any sort of compressed vocal style. And when I say compressed, what I mean is narrowing of the tissues above the vocal folds, right? And I talked a lot about that in my last video. I'm not going to go all deep into it again. I'll talk about what we can do with it though, right? So again, if I have, why am I so burpy? What the hell? If I have like a basic false chord, again, which is very air dumpy, right? So, I can find it with like some Kargaria. I kind of have to, I got to keep my airflow kind of in one spot for that distortion to continue, right? Now, this isn't a disadvantage because false chord, like really loose, nasty false chord, I think does some things better than these compressed, really like styles. But one thing it doesn't do as well is the ability to kind of like slur your vocals around, and you can make this sound really cool. The first person I really noticed doing this, I'm not saying the first person who did it, but the first person I noticed doing it was CJ McCreary, either in because Signs of the Swarm or Lorna Shore, whichever one of those bands. I don't remember. But you can see Will doing some of this here. I could say, I don't know the lyrics. I could say like, tusu, and watch my cheeks here. Too soon. It's like I'm saying too soon. Too soon. Right? Now I'm going to let those cheeks kind of... I can even blow a little bit. You're going to see my cheeks puff up. I can blow a little bit, and that creates like a really cool like depth, almost like sort of hollow sound that can sound very, very sinister, kind of monstrous. So I have no blow, right? Now, so it's a really cool way to kind of play around, and it works best when you're moving between syllables. Let those cheeks kind of puff up and blow some air out. And you can tell, and that's one of the cool things, like you can create such crazy tones just by bending the tongue and like moving the air over just the top or the top and the bottom at the same time. You know, you can kind of turn it this way. Right? Like, what was that? I don't know. I'm just turning my tongue this way and trying to blow over the bottom and the top at the same time. And it sounds weird, right? Let's keep going. Nice. We hear a switch into basically a new vocal style, a lot more true chord tonality. I kept wanting to say true tone chordality. That ain't right. True chord tonality, which is really cool. Much brighter, much less squeezed, right? Much less like squeezed. And again, I don't do these types of screams, but much less down here, like, you know, more higher up. And it sounds really, it's a nice way to lead into the next section. And it makes that sort of like cry off the top really nice. Let's keep going. Come on, you. That right there. So it's with these like staticky sounds, it's so easy. Mid, or well, they're both kind of mids, but dark mid, bright mid, dark mid, bright mid. You can kind of hear it if you just do air, like wow, wow, wow. So there's minimal change in the actual laryngeal space. You know, if you put a camera down there, you would see some, right? These muscles are all interconnected. But, you know, when we're talking about the driving force, where the steering wheel is here, we're not putting it here, we're putting it here. And these tilts are super, they're way easier, right? Sometimes when I'm wanting in my own music to move from like a higher to a more mid space, not quite like this, but similar, one thing I'll do is I'll actually just take a high and I'll darken it. So, you know, I've got a high vocal, right? A high vocal. So I'll just darken it. Right? Makes it a lot easier. Let's keep going though. Let's keep going. Cause if you were to take a Lorna Shore song, and this is not a dig because you could do the exact same thing with a lot of Kardashev songs. It would just be different stuff. We are mathematically, if you split it into threes, we are coming up on the big stinky breakdown. For Kardashev, it would be the big open section where not a lot is going on. And then the big like strummy, tons of reverb sort of shoegazy thing. So It's their formula, but lots of bands have formulas. Kardashev has a formula, so no dig here. I told you. That part's really valuable right here. So this is something that's really important, and I want to talk about it, and I want to take my time to talk about it, because, you know, as somebody who's been giving vocal lessons 6 days a week for 5 years, you know, literally thousands of these vocal lessons, you know, I can see the landscape of what tends to be confusing for students, what tends to, you know, make them kind of lose their way a little bit. And I want to be clear here that when I talk about this, I'm talking about a perceptive road, right? I'm talking about what's happening between a beginner's ear and a professional produced song. Whether it be a one take like this, whether it be an album version. What I'm not talking about is the album version or the student. Okay. But a lot of the times, to put it into kind of an analogy or a metaphor, which is how my entire mind works, students will proverbially do this. They'll walk into a restaurant, right? Again, this is an analogy to set up what I'm trying to say. They'll walk into a restaurant, bite into a delicious piece of barbecue chicken, and because they don't know anything about cooking, they think that barbecue flavor is part of the chicken. And then when they find out that it's not, they have an existential crisis because they think the barbecue on the chicken is cheating, right? That's ridiculous. And I have to be like, no, it's you're allowed to season food, and not only is seasoning food okay, it is highly encouraged, right? Highly encouraged. So when we listen to this section, we can hear a lot of Will's voice, especially in this spot. We can hear a lot of Will's voice, you know, that is not produced, at least again, in this spot, exactly the same way that it would be on an album. If anything, if I'm wrong about that, then it's definitely not sitting where it is in the mix. And so we can hear his voice with a lot of, I guess I could say, fidelity. We can hear his voice very clearly. And what we can hear in this space, right? Now I'm going to tread on some super fans' toes. Okay? You always do with bands like Nightwish, with bands like Lorna Shore, with bands like, you know, whoever, any of those like big bands. Anytime you say anything that they can choose to interpret as a dig, they will do so. Trust me. 99% of the fan bases are awesome. Like, especially Nightwish. Y'all show up. Y'all are amazing. But each one of those fan bases has that small group of people that, man, you could say that you love the singer and they will be like, you didn't say you love them right. So I'm going to say some things here and I want you to listen intellectually. Okay. The tone of this scream is thin. Okay. Listen. Specifically the one he's going to hold out here. Right there. This one is what I'm talking about right here. That is a thin tone. Okay. That's not a bad thing, right? Pizza is thinner than a loaf of sourdough. That doesn't mean pizza's bad. It just means it's thinner, right? So a lot of times I will have students who actually can make that exact same sound. And they're like, I suck. And I'm like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? That tone's amazing. And they're like, oh, it's so thin. And I'm like, oh God, ew. Whoever put that in your head, get it out, right? Because most vocals we do on their own don't really sound that cool, right? You know, a lot of people, the charismatic voice especially, they refer to this in sort of like the source filter, you know, verbiage, source filter. I don't know where that originated, but it's been around for a little while. But essentially what we're talking about is where the distortion is created and then how we shape the distortion, right? So like raw chicken, or not raw chicken, but like chicken just boiled in water would be gross. Chicken, you know, poached and then maybe seared and then maybe baked a little bit, but not too dry with the right seasoning. Now it's delicious. So we have these big open sounds that we shape, right? We shape them. We do tongue up and mouth here, right? And I'll use a sound that I use a lot. So I can show you exactly what I mean from personal experience. If I'm going to do some big nasty lows, I'll go, right? That's a sound that people tend to enjoy, right? When people listen to it, they tend to think it's all right. If I take away all the filter, it's going to sound like dog shit. It's not going to sound cool.
Hi, everybody. My name is Mark, and this sounds like a weird Cookie Monster voice. But if I...
Now it sounds pretty cool, right? Now, that's not to say that we have to be closed down. You can make these sounds cool like he just did with, you know, the right mouth shape and tongue back. Right? But what I'm trying to say here is if you are a new vocalist and you're listening to songs and getting discouraged that you don't sound like the album, well, you probably don't, because your voice is one voice by itself alone in a car. Whereas oftentimes, and this is especially common in deathcore, you have stacked voices. You know, one thing that's really common is that, you know, and he's not doing this here, at least not that I can hear, but this is very common in the industry, is you do your take, right? You do your vocal. Let's say it's this, like just a basic mid. Man. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Then you put one underneath it that's a little darker. So you have your first take, whoa, whoa. Then maybe you even one more, whoa, right? And then an engineer who's really good, a producer who really knows their stuff, makes those sound like they're all the same thing. Generally, the reason you do that is to help it sit properly in the mix, not to cheat, not to be like, oh, you've created a fake sound. That is something I don't care about at all. Like, you know, sometimes people get so up in arms about the use of effects. Oh, I heard he used Melodyne. I don't care. I'm a vocal coach and I don't give a shit, bro. You know, I'm here to make art and to listen to art. I do not. Oh, did you hear that he pitch shifted his scream? Bro, I got a mortgage. I don't have time to care about that. Leave me out of it. So this is great. I think that this vocal one take is excellent for students and learners, because here in this section, especially in the end, he sounds awesome and he sounds much more raw on an album. So this would be much easier to match with proper expectations, right? And you can hear how you can make these sounds interesting, right? There's definitely a little reverb and delay, but I have never met anybody who thinks that is how they're supposed to sound, right? I've never heard anybody say like, oh, my voice is supposed to echo. And it's like, what? You know, I've never run into that. But this is a great section. So again, to summarize, this section, we hear Will's voice with a lot of clarity and sitting in a space that we wouldn't normally hear it in a mix. This then allows us to hear how to create fundamental tones and use interesting filters, interesting mouth shapes, interesting pressures to then create more intermediate and advanced tones and textures. Okay. And this section really is like the best for it, especially that scream. I want you to hear it one more time, and you can hear it's open, it's wide, it's thin, it's shaped, and it's pretty cool. Now, those don't sound thin at all. Those sound thick and chunky, but it's mostly because of this. It's mostly from what's happening in here. The way the sound waves are bouncing around, the way that they're not able to escape immediately. They're staying inside the mouth. Bounce, 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 thickening, stretching, and then leaving. Now he opens up. We have a thinner sound, but we've got some nice brightness from the showing of the teeth, right? I don't know if it'll come through here, but you can kind of see the tongue curled back a little bit, right? Very cool. Yeah, it's interesting that he saved this tone for the very, very end. A lot of hypernasality, a lot of closing, right? Like a lot of this chewy sound. He uses that quite frequently. Interesting that he saved it for the end here. Like I said, I listened to Unbreakable when it released. I haven't really listened to it since. But yeah. Oh, and you can hear what I'm talking about here. That little vocal break off. I love that sound. So yeah, you can hear there's like, a compressor on there and probably what am I trying to say? Some reverb, some delay. But yeah, that's on my list of things that as a vocalist and a vocal coach, topics I just really tire me out. Not the use of vocal effects, because they're cool. They're fun. It's fun to pull up the plugins and get a little wacky. But like this, he used effects. And neither person can even really define what effects is. And it's like, oh my God, dude. Ugh. Like there are times when I have to like literally just force myself to not, like, I'm just like, stay professional. That's, maybe I'll make a list. Hot takes. My hot takes about hot takes in metal vocals. But anyway, yeah, this is a really good song for people to practice along to, because he does a lot of advanced things here, but he does not do a lot of advanced things super quickly. So it's easy for you to follow, right? It's, well, I don't know about easy, but it's followable. It's much like, like if you think about To the Hellfire, if you think about a lot of the stuff on Pain Remains, there's a lot of like, it's like really fast, really rapid fire, switching between techniques very, very quickly. Here, he sort of stays in the pocket, which I think really adds to this song, right? One of my favorite things about this song is actually the guitar. I'm a really big fan of Fallujah. The band Fallujah, you've probably heard, and they do a lot of like really bandy, like guitar solos, and I love them. It's like they kind of like are Sonic the Hedgehog-y, but in like a really good way. And so these guitar solos felt kind of reminiscent of Fallujah in that way. And so like that plus like the big open space between the snares and the verb on the snare hit. If he was going super fast and crazy over the song, it wouldn't make a whole lot of sense, right? So he participated with the song very well. But yeah, Will has an extremely unique voice, very, very distinct, right? And if you're looking to create these sounds, what I would say is, for now, from what we know, the turning the sideways larynx thing is a little rare. Now, maybe we'll sample, 1,000 more vocalists and we'll find, oh, it's actually not rare. In that case, okay. But what I would say is focus on airflow. Why was I searching for that word? Focus on airflow. One of the most important things, and really what made a difference for me, granted, I found my way to a different scream, but I used to just have this like air dumpy long, like when I first started, all of my vocals, like my lows kind of sounded like, they kind of sounded like this, right? And they sounded okay on a track if you mess with them a little bit, but they just weren't very viable. So one thing I thought about is I started to think less about this and more about this, right? The gut to the chest. Right. And that really helped me kind of get to that space. So you can think about that as well. If you want, more information on exercises and things, I do give full-time lessons. I've got an e-course on the website called False Chord Fundamentals. It ain't going to teach you this, but it's going to teach you a lot of the same. It's going to teach you like all the breath support and resonance concepts that you would need to move this way. As it says in the title, it's False Chord Fundamentals. Every once in a while, somebody gets it and they're like, this was just beginner stuff. And it's like, homie, it says fundamentals, you dingbat. Like, what? Of course it's beginner stuff, you fool. You know what I mean? People are funny. I like to tell stories like that because I think they're entertaining, but I have been blessed that 99.9% of people I run into in the metal vocal world and in the vocal teaching world are super genuine and kind and caring and awesome. So while I love to tell those cheeky stories, like really the vast majority of people are amazing. But that's it. Okay, I've got a vocal lesson really soon here, so I got to let you go. But looking forward to this album drop. I'm going to do another review. I did a review of Shadow of Intense Imperium Delirium. Rated it very highly because it's excellent. I don't know what this one will rate. We'll see. In those videos, I talk a lot more about in this, I talked a lot about technique, tone, texture, color. I didn't really mention whether I like the song or not. And I'm going to save it for the album review, where I get a little bit more opinion based. And I asked, what's this song trying to do? What's the goal? What's the message it's conveying? Right. I talk about it a lot more as art versus science and technique. So keep an eye out for that. I think this album's dropping at some temper. I don't know. Anyways, many thanks, much love. I'm out.